Welcome back to the FTTM podcast, your guide to getting the right product to the market at the right time. This week, we're going to focus on FTTM planning, how to execute to achieve right time.
Yeah, and this is such a massive topic for us to tackle today.
It really is. And just for anyone new joining us, FTTM stands for fast time to market.
Right. It is an entire methodology, total built around speed.
Exactly. Because what if I told you that overspending your R&D development budget by like 50% is practically just a rounding error?
Which sounds completely crazy to most finance people.
It does. It sounds insane. But in the grand scheme of your product's life cycle, it is a rounding error because launching that exact same hardware just 6 months late will permanently destroy a third of your company's total life cycle profits.
A full third. Just gone.
Just gone. So today we are diving into how organizations can actually stop bleeding time. Because if you are running an FTTM strategy, you already know the stakes. Capturing that fleeting market window is, well, it's really the only thing that matters.
It is the defining metric of success. I mean, without it, what are you even doing?
Right. But so many organizations that preach these principles still find themselves staring at a project schedule that was, completely green for 18 months.
Oh, I have seen this 100 times.
And then magically, it turns entirely red the week before launch.
It is terrifying. And that is why the material we are going through today is so important. It completely rethinks the structural reality of how work actually gets done.
Yeah. We are going to be using Lateral Works research and Lateral Works best practices today. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore a specific organizational model that cures this exact delay problem.
And it is called the Product Delivery Team, or the PDT.
Right, the PDT. And at the absolute center of this framework is a role that just completely dismantles the traditional corporate hierarchy. They call this role the product boss.
The product boss. It is a heavy title.
It really is. So you as a listener, you're going to hear exactly why your products are chronically late, even if you have, world-class engineering teams.
Because it is rarely the engineer's fault.
Exactly. We are going to diagnose this execution gap, and we will see how empowering a single, undisputed CEO of the product completely rewires a company's capability to actually hit that market window.
I love that framing. But to understand the cure that Lateral Works proposes, we really have to start by accurately diagnosing the disease.
Let's do it.
Like, why do organizations even need this highly disruptive product boss role to begin with?
Yeah, why rock the boat?
Well, it all comes down to the foundational architecture of traditional companies.
Right, the way they are built. Most companies are built on what we call functional swim lanes.
Yes, the classic silos.
You have an engineering department in one lane, marketing is in another lane, manufacturing, procurement, quality assurance, they're all swimming in their own separate lanes.
And each lane has its own vice president.
Exactly. They have their own VP, their own internal metrics for success, their own budgets.
And honestly, according to Lateral Works best practices, those functional swim lanes are actually quite brilliant as a planning framework.
Wait, really? They are brilliant.
We're planning, yes. Think about it. If you are a VP trying to figure out your annual budget for, say, the mechanical engineering department, swim lanes make sense.
Oh, okay. I see.
Or if you need to standardize the CAD software that all your designers use globally, right? Swim lanes are incredibly efficient for that. They create these centers of excellence.
That makes total sense for administration.
But, and this is the massive structural flaw, they completely fail as an execution model.
When it is time to actually do the work.
Exactly. When you are in a fast-paced, high-stakes product launch, swim lanes are a disaster.
So let's trace the causality there. If these swim lanes are full of, highly competent specialists, why do they fail so spectacularly when it is time to actually build and launch the physical product?
Because in a traditional swim lane model, no single human being actually owns the product end to end.
Wow. Nobody owns it.
Nobody. Think about the entire life cycle from the new product introduction phase, the whiteboard concept,
right,
all the way through prototype testing, rigorous qualification, and the actual volume ramp up in the factory.
To yield millions of units.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In a normal company, the product is essentially just tossed over a series of brick walls.
I have seen that. Engineering designs it, then they just toss it over the wall to manufacturing. Good luck, guys.
Right. And then manufacturing tries to build it, realizes they can't, and tosses it over the wall to quality.
It is exactly like a relay race.
Oh, that is a great analogy.
Yeah, imagine a relay race where every single runner on the track is an Olympic sprinter.
Best in the world.
Right. The electrical engineer runs their leg of the race flawlessly based on their specific departmental metrics. The supply chain manager runs their leg perfectly.
They all look great on paper.
But nobody on the entire field is actually responsible for making sure the baton doesn't hit the ground during the handoff.
That is the perfect way to describe it.
But when the baton inevitably drops, when a design spec isn't manufacturable at scale, everyone just stands around pointing at each other.
Yep. The engineer says, I gave you a perfect design.
And the manufacturer says, well, your design requires a tolerance we literally cannot achieve in high volume.
And meanwhile, nobody is held accountable for the overall delay of the product.
Nobody. That is the execution gap in a nutshell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And while those functional managers are sitting in a conference room arguing over whose fault the dropped baton is, the market window is just actively closing.
Time is ticking. Competitors are launching. Market share is evaporating.
This is exactly why Lateral Works Research introduces this very intentional, highly disruptive title change.
Right. They do not call this person a product delivery leader.
Or a project manager. No.
Yeah.
They explicitly change the title to product boss.
And the semantics there are really fascinating to me, especially today. I mean, in modern corporate culture, we heavily index on collaboration, right? Flat hierarchies. Consensus building.
Everyone gets a vote.
Exactly. So the word boss feels almost aggressively retro.
It does. It really does.
It implies a command and control structure that a lot of tech companies actively try to avoid. So why does that specific word matter so much to the Lateral Works framework?
Well, because the word leader describes a behavior,
Okay.
whereas boss describes strict structural accountability.
Oh, that is a big difference.
It is huge. I mean, you can lead through influence, right? You can lead by coaching your peers. You can lead a really great brainstorming session.
But you don't necessarily have the final say.
Exactly. The title, Product Boss, exists to settle jurisdictional disputes instantly. It establishes this clear, bright line of authority.
Regarding who takes direction from whom.
Yes. It leaves no ambiguity.
So it is really a mechanism to cut through the organizational noise. If a functional manager from, say, the engineering swim lane tries to override a design decision because it conflicts with their internal departmental goals,
Which happens all the time.
right, the title of Product Boss reminds everyone in the room that the functional manager does not have the final say on the product's execution.
Precisely. It is designed to end those passive-aggressive committee decisions that just plague complex hardware development.
Oh, the committee decisions. We have all sat in those meetings.
We all have. 10 highly intelligent people are in a room. A critical trade-off needs to be made, let's say, between battery life and device weight.
A classic trade-off.
Everyone debates it for 2 hours. Everyone nods. But nobody actually possesses the absolute authority to make the call without checking with their respective VP.
So what happens? A subcommittee is formed.
A subcommittee is formed, another week is lost, and the schedule slips.
The product boss ends that dynamic completely. They are the single point of accountability.
Yes, but I know what you were going to say.
I mean, I can easily see how giving someone that kind of dictatorial power over cross-functional resources would ruffle a massive amount of feathers.
Oh, absolutely.
A VP of engineering is not going to take kindly to some product boss swooping in and telling their elite engineers what to prioritize today.
It absolutely causes friction. There is no way around that. But when you look at the Lateral Works case studies, ruffled feathers are infinitely cheaper than missed market windows.
Wow. That is a hard truth.
It is. If you want speed, you have to sacrifice the comfort of consensus.
So if this role is meant to break through those entrenched functional swim lanes, we really need to measure their actual structural authority.
Right. Are they real or just a name?
Exactly. Are they just a figurehead with a provocative title, or do they have real organizational teeth?
They have incredibly sharp teeth. In the Lateral Works research, the product boss is categorized as a unicorn role.
A unicorn.
Yes, this is someone who has deep skin in the game, they command immense respect from the technical teams, and they possess the structural authority to make rapid binding decisions.
We say unicorn. I think the assumption for a lot of people is that this person must be the smartest engineer in the room.
Right, the genius.
Like they hold a PhD in electrical engineering, they understand material science perfectly, and they can code the firmware themselves on a weekend.
Which is impossible.
Right, that level of hyper-specialization across every single domain is just not humanly possible.
And that is a common misconception that dooms a lot of hiring processes for this role. They do not need to be the smartest specialist in the room. The lateral works papers describe them instead as an expert generalist.
An expert generalist. Let me try to frame that concept. It is kind of like a master chef running a really chaotic Michelin star kitchen.
Okay, I like this.
The head chef doesn't necessarily need to know how to fix the plumbing under the commercial dishwasher. And they don't need to know the exact agronomy of how the organic carrots were farmed.
Right, they hire specialists for that, plumbers and farmers.
Exactly. But the chef absolutely must understand how every single ingredient interacts. They need to know how the timing of the ovens works in concert with the prep stations.
To pull the whole meal together.
Right. And how to plate the dish so the final customer experience is flawless. They are the only one who sees the entire system.
That is a phenomenal way to conceptualize it. In a tech or hardware environment, the product boss is doing exactly that. They connect the dots across packaging constraints, test engineering protocols, yield economics, the realities of the global supply chain, and of course, the end customer's shifting requirements.
They see the whole board.
Yes. So, for example, if the design team wants to use a brand new, highly conductive material.
Sounds great for engineering.
Right. But the product boss is the one who realizes that this specific material requires a curing process that will add 45 seconds to the manufacturing time of every single unit.
Which destroys the throughput of the factory.
And kills the profit margin completely. The specialist only sees the thermal conductivity. The expert generalist sees the P&L impact.
The profit and loss. That is huge. So to wield that kind of cross-domain influence, where do they actually sit on the organizational chart?
That is a critical structural point.
Because if they are circumventing the powerful functional VPs, who is their boss? Who do they report to?
They report directly to the product director. You can think of the product director as the manager of the product bosses.
Okay, so they have their own vertical.
Exactly. This reporting structure intentionally keeps them out of the functional swim lanes entirely. They are not beholden to the VP of engineering or the VP of manufacturing.
That gives them neutrality.
Yes. But crucially, they also maintain a direct line of communication to the program general manager or the PGM.
And what is that line used for?
For major strategic escalations, when things get really stuck.
So they are structurally insulated from functional bias. But let's look at how this plays out on a random Tuesday afternoon.
The day-to-day reality.
Right. When there is a fierce disagreement about a product feature, say engineering wants to delay the launch by 3 weeks to fix a minor bug, but marketing says the bug is irrelevant and they absolutely must hit the holiday window.
Happens every day.
Who wins that fight?
That daily friction is governed by what Lateral Works best practices call the 80-20 rule for decision authority.
The 80-20 rule.
The product boss, along with their dedicated core team, makes 80% of all product decisions entirely autonomously.
Wait, 80%?
80%. No asking for permission, no waiting for an executive steering committee to convene next month. They simply decide the path and execute it immediately.
80% autonomy on a multi-million-dollar corporate hardware program is staggering.
It is a massive amount of trust.
Traditional management structures are built entirely around risk mitigation, which usually means burying decisions in layers of approvals. So what makes up the other 20%?
Corporate functions retain a 20% veto, but it is strictly reserved for enterprise-level decisions.
Okay, I have to push back on that.
Go for it.
Because in my experience with corporate politics, a 20% veto is a massive loophole.
It can be if it isn't managed.
Right, because if I have an executive who likes to meddle, I can easily argue that choosing the color of a plastic casing or deciding on a specific battery supplier is an enterprise-level risk.
Just to get your way.
Exactly, just so I can force my opinion on the team. How does the framework prevent executives from abusing that 20%?
It requires immense executive discipline.
Yeah.
And the Lateral Works framework establishes very rigid boundaries around what actually constitutes enterprise risk.
So color choices don't count.
Definitely not. It is absolutely not for micromanaging product features, component selection, or daily schedule execution.
Okay.
The 20% veto is reserved for existential or massive financial risks to the entire company.
Give me an example of a massive risk.
We are talking about decisions like spending $500 million to spin up a brand new manufacturing factory in a new country.
Okay, yes, that is enterprise risk.
Or a product decision that would fundamentally violate established corporate safety and quality standards, putting the company at legal risk.
That makes sense.
Aside from those massive foundational issues, the 80% autonomy rule for the product boss must remain sacred. If executives abuse the 20%, they destroy the speed of the PDT.
It undermines the whole thing. But even with that autonomy established at the top, how does the product boss enforce their will downward over the actual team members?
This is where it gets real for the team.
Because if the engineers sitting on the product delivery team are still getting their annual bonuses and their career promotions from their old functional managers in the swim lanes.
They will just ignore the product boss.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're always going to prioritize what the functional manager wants. That is just basic human nature and self-preservation.
You have zeroed in on the exact mechanism that makes the product boss model viable. You cannot decouple authority from compensation.
You have to control the money.
Under Lateral Work's best practices, the product boss conducts, or at the very least heavily influences, 50 to 100% of the performance reviews for every single member of their core team.
They control the purse strings.
They have to. If you do not have direct influence over a team member's performance review, you only have the illusion of authority.
That is a great point.
By controlling the reviews, the product boss aligns the team's personal financial incentives entirely with the success and speed of the product delivery.
Rather than with the internal metrics of their old functional departments.
Exactly. It forces alignment.
That makes perfect structural sense. So we know who they are, we know they are expert generalists, and we know they possess the 80% autonomy and the performance review leverage to actually drive action.
Yes. The structure is in place.
So what is their ultimate objective? What is the singular North Star that justifies giving one person this much power?
The North Star is one word: speed.
Speed.
The product boss's primary overriding mandate is taking the product from a concept on a whiteboard to a physical, qualified product in the market as fast as humanly possible.
As fast as humanly possible.
Everything else, every feature request, every departmental preference, every budget debate, it is all secondary to that goal.
See, speed is one of those concepts that everyone agrees on in principle. But in execution, it terrifies organizations.
Because it feels out of control.
Exactly. Because speed usually implies recklessness. You are cutting corners.
But to achieve this safely, the Lateral Works papers state that the product boss owns the new product introduction process, or the NPI.
Okay.
And they enforce it with an iron fist. The research specifically mentions 6 phases and 7 gates.
Yes, I saw that. The phase gate process.
The NTI phase gate process is the quality backbone of the product. The gates represent critical maturity checkpoints, like a design freeze or a tooling release.
And you are saying the product boss enforces these gates with 0 exceptions.
0 exceptions and absolutely no bypasses allowed.
That sounds like a contradiction, though.
How so?
Well, if their entire mandate is speed, how can they be so rigid about a process? I guarantee any seasoned engineer listening to this has been on a project that is running 3 weeks late.
Oh, at least 3 weeks.
Right. And what is the very first thing upper management suggests? They come in and say, hey, can we just skip gate 4?
Just skip the testing, yeah.
Can we bypass the secondary thermal validation phase so we can make up that 3 weeks and hit the launch date? You are saying the product boss forbids that.
They forbid it entirely.
Yeah.
Because bypassing a phase gate is a false economy.
A false economy. Explain that.
It creates the illusion of speed today, but it guarantees a massive catastrophic delay tomorrow.
Because it breaks in the field.
Exactly. If you skip thermal validation to save 3 weeks, you are going to discover a critical overheating issue when the product is already being mass-produced in the factory.
And then you have to stop the line.
Stopping a factory line, recalling units, diagnosing the failure, and respinning the silicon. That takes 6 months.
Wow.
The product boss knows that enforcing the NPI gates rigidly is the only mathematical way to protect the final launch date.
Okay, so they protect the process. But if they refuse to cut corners on the process, how do they actually generate the speed? Where does the time savings come from?
It comes from the fact that they own the P&L, the profit and loss statement. They own the cost of goods sold and the yield economics of the product.
Because they own the business outcome.
Right. And because of that, they are uniquely positioned to drive what Lateral Works calls before-the-fact urgency.
Before-the-fact urgency. Let's contrast that with how most companies operate. Because normal organizations run on after-the-fact urgency.
Totally.
After-the-fact urgency is what happens in the final month of a project. Everything is suddenly red on the schedule, the launch date is in jeopardy, and everyone is working 18-hour days.
Burning weekends.
Exactly. Burning weekends in a state of total panic to fix things that have already gone wrong.
It is reactive panic. Before the fact, urgency means the product boss is forcing brutal, uncomfortable trade-off decisions on day one, week one, and month one.
Early in the process.
Yes, they are constantly looking at the integrated target schedule. And if they see a tiny 2-day gap forming in a subsystem design phase, they force a pivot right then and there.
So they don't wait for it to become a 3-week delay.
Exactly. They make the hard calls while there is still ample time to actually change the approach, rather than just discovering a massive, unfixable delay at the very end.
It requires an incredibly proactive mindset. If I think about how this translates to their daily behavior, the product boss isn't a micromanager looking over people's shoulders.
No, not at all.
They're more like a master chess player. In chess, a grandmaster will willingly sacrifice their pawns.
Right, early in the game.
Yes. Maybe that pawn represents spending extra budget or dropping a non-critical feature. They do it specifically to clear a completely unobstructed path for their queen to strike later on.
They absorb the small hit now.
Exactly. They're absorbing early, calculated losses to guarantee the final victory.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. They are manipulating the board to protect the critical path. And the lateral works research highlights 2 very specific, practical daily duties that the product boss executes to keep that path clear.
What are they?
Provisioning and clearing obstacles.
Okay, let's look at provisioning first. In a typical corporate environment, an engineer might need access to a specialized testing lab or a specific piece of software to run a simulation.
A very common scenario.
Often, they submit a ticket, and then they sit on their hands for 4 days waiting for the IT department or procurement to approve the expense. I assume provisioning means the product boss entirely eliminates that waiting period.
You have hit the nail on the head. Provisioning means anticipating the team's needs before the team even realizes they need them.
Looking ahead on the schedule.
Exactly. The product boss ensures that the software tools, the budget approvals, the lab equipment, and the critical cross-functional information are all waiting for the engineer exactly when they are ready to start the task.
So nobody ever waits.
Right. If an engineer on the critical path has to stop working on a Tuesday to wait for an approval from corporate, that is a failure of the product boss. In FTTM planning, a team that waits is a team that slips.
Which leads directly into clearing obstacles.
Right. Clearing obstacles means absorbing all the organizational noise that normally distracts engineers.
The corporate bureaucracy.
Exactly. For example, a functional VP for marketing wants a detailed status update that will take a key engineer 3 hours to prepare.
Those slide decks take forever.
The product boss intercepts that request. They shield the team. They spend their own political capital to tell the VP, no, my engineer's not doing that presentation.
Just a flat no.
Yes. They will say, I will give you the high-level metrics, but my team is focusing entirely on execution.
Everything you are describing requires the product boss to prioritize the schedule over everything else, including budget overruns and office politics.
Over absolutely everything.
But I want to look closely at the math behind that relentless prioritization. If my entire performance review as a product boss is based on hitting a launch date, how do I avoid the trap of shipping a subpar product?
The answer lies in a foundational metric highlighted in lateralworks.com case studies, and it is called the cost of delay.
The cost of delay.
Understanding this metric is what separates true product bosses from simple project managers.
Let's run a hypothetical scenario to understand this cost of delay. Let's say I am the product boss of a highly anticipated new hardware module.
Okay, you are the boss.
And we hit a snag in testing. I have a choice. I can either authorize an emergency spend of $5 million, which will blow my R&D development budget out of the water by 50%, right? I spend that to fly in specialized consultants and rush a fix to keep the schedule on track.
Okay. That is option A.
Or option B, I can refuse to spend the money, stay within my budget, but ship the product 6 months late.
A classic dilemma.
In a traditional company, the finance department will scream bloody murder about a 50% budget overrun. They will hold endless tribunals to prevent me from spending that $5 million.
They absolutely will, because finance departments track variance to budget very closely. But the lateral works data completely invalidates that financial caution. The data shows that overspending a development budget by 50% only reduces your total lifecycle profits for that product by roughly 3.5%.
Only 3.5%.
Yes. It is painful, but it is recoverable.
I mean, 3.5% is practically a rounding error when you are talking about total lifecycle revenue.
Precisely. But what happens if you choose the other option? What happens if you save the $5 million, but you ship that exact same product 6 months late?
What does the data say?
The data shows that shipping 6 months late destroys 33% or more of your total life cycle profit.
Wow, a third of the profit completely vaporized.
It's just gone.
Because by shipping late, you allowed your competitors to establish market dominance. You missed the critical holiday buying window. Your customers bought an alternative solution.
Yes, all of that.
And by the time you finally launch, the technology curve has moved, forcing you to immediately discount the price of your product.
Exactly. Price erosion alone will slaughter your margins. So when the product boss looks at that choice, it isn't even a debate.
You spend the money.
You overspend the budget to protect the schedule every single time. Overspending hurts a little. Being late is fatal.
And this loops perfectly back to the question of quality and why they rigidly enforce those 7 NPI gates. Speed without quality creates a failed product in the field.
Which is the ultimate delay.
Right. And if a product fails in the field, you have to recall it, diagnose the failure, redesign it, and relaunch it.
Which takes infinitely longer than just doing it right the first time. That is the genius of the framework. Quality is not the enemy of speed.
It enables it.
Yes. Enforcing quality early through the phase gates is the only mathematical way to guarantee speed later in the volume ramp.
So we understand the massive financial stakes, and we understand the singular authority of the product boss.
Yeah.
But how does this actually translate to the daily life of the team members?
How they actually work together.
Right. How do you keep a team moving at this velocity without burning them out? To achieve this, the Lateral Work's best practices outline 6 non-negotiable operating principles.
These principles are the structural foundation of FTTM planning.
This is the code that the entire product delivery team lives by.
Yes. And if you compromise on even one of them, the entire model degrades back into traditional slow swim lanes.
Okay, let's go through them. Principle number 1 we have thoroughly covered, but it sets the tone. Concept to market is the absolute North Star.
It emphasizes speed over control.
Right. Every single staffing choice, every budget debate, every feature trade-off is evaluated against a single question. Does this make the boat go faster?
If the answer is no, the decision is discarded.
Just thrown out.
Yes. And this principle is particularly difficult for executives because prioritizing speed fundamentally requires management to give up a degree of control.
That is tough for a lot of leaders. Now, principle 2 is the 80-20 decision authority residing firmly inside the product delivery team.
This ensures that the authority to act lives exactly where the information is most accurate.
Inside the trenches with the team.
Exactly. Rather than up in some disconnected executive steering committee that meets once a month.
Principle 3 mandates that the boss is an expert generalist, someone who optimizes the total system rather than championing one specific technical domain.
We talked about the chef analogy.
Right. But principle 4 is where I think most modern companies fundamentally break down.
Oh, this is the big one.
Principle 4 states, no shared resources. Every single core team member must be dedicated 100% to one single product. Multiplexing across multiple projects is strictly forbidden.
This is the most controversial principle for traditional finance departments. But Lateral Works identifies multiplexing, having your engineers work on 2 or 3 projects simultaneously as the single biggest source of hidden schedule bloat in modern business.
I'm going to push back on this on behalf of every CFO listening.
I am ready.
Because in the real world, companies are obsessed with matrixing employees. It is standard operating procedure.
Oh, they love it.
A CFO will look at an Excel spreadsheet and say, why would I pay our top thermal engineer a $200,000 salary to sit on one single product full-time when there might be a few days where they aren't fully utilized?
The spreadsheet logic.
Right. They think, I can get much better ROI if I give 33% of their time to Project A, 33% to Project B, and 33% to Project C.
Sounds perfectly efficient on paper.
Exactly. Dedicating 10 to 13 highly paid senior engineers entirely to one single product sounds incredibly prohibitively expensive. Is this principle actually realistic for anyone other than Apple or Google?
It is not only realistic, it is the only viable path to genuine speed. We have to violently unpack the illusion of efficiency in matrix organizations.
Okay, unpack it.
The CFO's spreadsheet assumed human beings are robots. When an engineer splits their time between 3 projects, they are not actually giving 33% of their output to each.
Cognitive science tells us that the human brain just does not work that way.
Not at all. Every single time that thermal engineer switches from the context of Project A to the completely different context of Project B, they pay a massive cognitive penalty.
Context switching.
Yes.
It takes you 20 or 30 minutes just to remember where you left off, find the right CAD files, reread the email chain, and get back into a productive flow state.
Exactly. And that context switching burns a massive percentage of their weekly capacity. They might only be delivering 20% value to each project because the rest of their time is lost in the friction of switching gears.
That is just lost time.
But honestly, the context switching isn't even the most destructive part of multiplexing. The true schedule killer is the hidden waiting time.
Let's trace the mechanics of that hidden waiting time. How does it actually play out in a project schedule?
Imagine Project A is your company's most critical flagship hardware launch.
The big moneymaker.
Yes. It is Tuesday morning, and the team hits a sudden, unexpected roadblock with the heat dissipation. They desperately need the thermal engineer to run a simulation and make a decision so the rest of the team can proceed.
Right.
But because the thermal engineer is matrixed, their schedule says they are dedicated to Project C on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. They cannot look at Project A's problem until Thursday morning.
So the thermal engineer is highly utilized, doing great work on Project C.
Yes, the engineer is 100% utilized. But Project A, the flagship program that will determine the company's quarter, completely halts for 48 hours.
Wow.
The entire multi-million-dollar program sits idle, bleeding market share, because it is waiting on a fraction of one person's time. In a matrix organization, high resource utilization guarantees project delays.
When you lay out the math like that, it connects right back to the cost of delay.
It connects perfectly.
Saving a tiny fraction of payroll by splitting an engineer's time is costing the company tens of millions of dollars in delayed product launches.
That is the exact mathematical reality. The Lateral Works best practice is uncompromising on this. A heavyweight, dedicated, fully allocated core team is not a luxury expense.
It is a necessity.
It is the fastest, most financially economical model for strategically critical programs. You pay heavily for focus because focus buys you speed. And as we established, speed buys you market dominance.
Focus is cheaper than delay. That should be framed on every CFO's wall.
I agree.
Okay, Principle 5 deals with how that dedicated team views time. The schedule is king. No macro schedule slippage is permitted. You bank time when you are ahead, and you recover immediately when you are behind.
This requires a highly disciplined culture. If a subtask on the critical path slips by 2 days, the team does not just shrug and accept that the final launch date is now 2 days later.
They fight for those days back.
They work immediately, applying intense before-the-fact urgency to pull those 2 days back somewhere else in the schedule before it impacts the final customer commitment.
And finally, Principle 6 ensures that the organizational structure supports this speed. The product boss must report to the product director to avoid cross-PDT resource conflicts.
Right. If you have 2 different product bosses running 2 different flagship programs, and they both desperately need to use the company's only acoustic testing chamber on the exact same Friday, you have a conflict.
A major logjam.
Principle 6 elevates that conflict out of the functional swim lanes and up to the product director, who makes a rapid strategic call on which product gets priority based on corporate goals.
It keeps the product bosses focused entirely on execution rather than internal turf war.
Exactly.
So we have established the operating principles. We have a core team that is 100% dedicated to a single product boss. But how do these 13 individuals actually interact on a daily basis?
Microdynamics.
Right. Does the team just sit quietly at their desks, waiting for the all-powerful product boss to hand down orders from on high? If they do, that sounds like a massive bottleneck.
It would be. And this brings us to one of the most fascinating diagnostic tools in the Lateral Works research, the freedom scale.
The freedom scale. I found this part brilliant because it quantifies something that is usually invisible in a company.
It measures autonomy.
Yes, it measures the exact level of autonomy within a team. It quantifies how empowered a person actually is, not just what their job description says.
And the fundamental premise of the freedom scale is elegantly simple. Trust produces speed. Control produces slowness.
Let's deduce how these levels actually play out in real communication. The scale goes from level 1, which is maximum autonomy and maximum speed, down to level 4, which is minimum autonomy and maximum slowness.
Okay, let's walk through them.
If I'm an engineer operating at level 1, what does my communication with the product boss look like?
Level 1 is defined as act and provide routine reporting only.
Okay.
This is what Lateral Works calls after-the-fact control. You encounter a problem, you analyze it, you implement the solution, and the product boss only finds out about it when they read your weekly summary report on Friday afternoon.
That is ultimate empowerment. You are just doing the job.
Exactly.
Now, level 2 steps it down just slightly. Level 2 is act, but advise at once. This is during the fact control.
Right. At level 2, you still take immediate action to solve the problem, but you shoot a quick instant message or email to the product boss. You say, hey, the supplier had a shortage on the original resistor, so I went ahead and swapped it for the pre-approved alternative, just keeping you in the loop.
You aren't asking permission.
No, you are just providing situational awareness.
So levels 1 and 2 are highly autonomous. You're moving first and communicating second. The speed of the project is never gated by the boss's inbox.
It flows naturally.
But then we cross a critical threshold into the bottleneck levels. What does level 3 look like?
Level 3 is where the project starts to slow down. Level 3 is recommend, then take action.
This is before the fact control.
Yes. The engineer goes to the product boss and says, here is the problem we found with the casing. Here are the 3 possible solutions. I recommend option B because of cost. Do I have your approval to proceed?
And nothing happens until the boss says yes.
The work stops completely.
And finally, level 4 is the absolute bottom of the scale. Level 4 is ask what to do.
The worst level for speed.
The engineer walks into the boss's office and says, the casing cracked during the drop test. Tell me how to fix it. This creates total paralyzing dependency on the boss.
And Lateral Works research is incredibly clear on the outcome of this dynamic. Best-in-class product organizations, the ones that consistently hit FTTM targets, run almost entirely at levels 1 and 2.
And normal organizations.
Normal, everyday, chronically late organizations run predominantly at levels 3 and 4.
It is basic math. If a product boss has to evaluate and approve every single level 3 recommendation from 13 different highly technical team members, the boss themselves becomes the primary roadblock in the entire schedule.
Exactly.
But what really caught my eye in the research is the idea of self-disempowerment. How does an engineer actively disempower themselves?
It is a psychological trap. If an engineer is afraid of making a mistake, or if they have been punished for taking initiative in the past, they will repeatedly go to the product boss with level 4 behavior.
Just asking what to do to be safe.
Exactly. And over time, this trains the product boss to micromanage them. The boss assumes the engineer is incapable of independent thought.
So the engineer drifts down the scale.
They voluntarily surrender their autonomy until they are completely dependent on direct orders.
This psychological dynamic reminds me of teaching a teenager how to drive a car.
Oh, that is a good one.
When they first get their learner's permit and get behind the wheel, you, as the parent, have to operate at level 4. You are telling them exactly when to apply the brake, when to check the blind spot, how far to turn the steering wheel.
Because they don't know how.
Right. But eventually your goal is to hand them the keys, tell them to go to the grocery store, and just let you know when they get home safely, which is level 1.
Right, you want them autonomous.
So I have to ask, is level 4 ever structurally acceptable in a high-stakes, multi-million-dollar product launch?
The driving analogy is perfect because it points to the only time level 4 is acceptable, when you are dealing with a true learner.
A brand new person.
Yes. Level 4 is strictly reserved for brand new hires during their initial onboarding phase. They don't know the company systems, they don't know the product history, so they genuinely need to ask what to do to build context.
So there is a necessary grace period for new talent.
Yes, but it must be an intentional, fiercely managed grace period. Best practices suggest there must be a planned trajectory to get that new hire operating at level 1 or 2 within 90 to 120 days.
And what if they don't?
If you have an experienced, highly paid senior professional who has been on the core team for a year and they are still operating at level 4, it is a catastrophic structural failure of management.
It is on the boss, not the employee.
It means the system, and specifically the product boss, has failed to create the psychological safety and the clarity required to empower them.
That is a harsh but necessary diagnostic truth. If your people are waiting for you to tell them what to do, you are failing as a product boss.
You're building a bottleneck.
Which leads us to a really complex operational dynamic. If the product boss is supposed to be operating at level 1 autonomy, with the executive team making high-level strategic calls, guarding the market window, and enforcing the NPI gates.
Doing the big picture stuff.
Exactly. Who is actually managing the spreadsheets? Who is tracking the daily, hourly tasks of these 13 dedicated engineers to make sure the schedule is mathematically sound?
This brings us to what Lateral Works identifies as the most frequently blurred and contentious boundary in FTTM planning.
Okay.
The dynamic between the product boss and the program manager, or the PM.
Those two roles sound like they would step on each other's toes constantly. The product boss wants speed, the program manager manages the schedule. How does the framework separate their jurisdictions so they aren't constantly fighting for control?
By utilizing a corporate analogy that clarifies their respective jurisdictions perfectly. In this framework, the product boss is the CEO of the product.
The CEO.
Yes. And the program manager is the COO, the chief operating officer of the product.
CEO versus COO. Let's delineate those boundaries. What does the CEO own?
The product boss, acting as the CEO, owns the what and the why.
Okay, the what and the why.
They own the ultimate business outcome, the profit and loss statement, and the brutally hard trade-offs. Their primary job is to hold the product vision intact against intense external and internal pressure.
So when a major customer wants to change the scope at the last minute,
Or when the engineering department wants to delay the launch by 2 months to perfect a non-essential feature.
the CEO holds the line, they protect the market window,
Exactly.
and the program manager, acting as the COO, what is their domain?
The program manager owns the how and the when. They are the tactical masterminds.
The operations.
Yes. They are running the integrated FTTM schedule. They are managing the critical path daily. They are breaking the massive project down into highly manageable, actionable 10-day tasks.
Very granular.
Extremely granular. If a subsystem slips by 3 days, the program manager is the one running the analytical models to figure out how to pull in the schedule somewhere else to get back on track.
So the product boss is looking at the horizon, navigating the market forces, and the program manager is looking at the ground directly in front of the team, ensuring every footstep is secure.
Perfect way to put it.
But when those roles blur, things must get chaotic.
Well,
What happens if the product boss decides they want to manage the schedule too?
that is a classic failure mode.
I can imagine.
If the product boss starts micromanaging the daily schedule, doing the COO's job, they inevitably leave the strategic vision unguarded.
Because they are looking at the ground, not the horizon.
Yeah.
Exactly. They get so caught up in task tracking that they miss the fact that the competitor just launched a rival product. You end up with a highly efficient, fast-moving team that is building the entirely wrong product for the market.
And what if the dynamic flips? What if the program manager, in their zeal to keep the schedule on track, starts making product trade-offs?
That is arguably even more dangerous.
Really?
Yes. If the PM makes product trade-offs, like deciding to cut a key software feature just so they don't have to report a schedule slip on their spreadsheet, they are making massive business decisions without bearing the P&L accountability.
They're acting like the CEO without the consequences.
Right. They might keep the schedule green, but they destroy the product's market viability in the process.
It sounds exactly like the relationship between the architect of a skyscraper and the general contractor who's actually building it.
Oh, that is a brilliant analogy.
The architect, the product boss, designed the building, understands the structural integrity, knows the client's budget, and holds the vision.
But the architect does not walk onto the construction site and tell the drywall crew which specific nail to hammer first.
No, that is the general contractor's job. But inversely, the general contractor, the program manager, cannot just decide to remove the entire 30th floor of the skyscraper to save time because they are running behind schedule.
Exactly. They have to work in absolute lockstep.
And if we look at the psychology required to make this relationship function, it demands immense, almost unnatural mutual trust.
It really does. The product boss must provide constant air cover for the program manager.
Air cover. Meaning what?
If the PM tells a senior engineer that a task is late and the engineer pushes back, the product boss must publicly back up the PM's schedule authority.
Otherwise, the PM has no power.
Right. And what does the program manager owe the boss in return for that protection?
Brutal, unvarnished honesty, I would assume.
Exactly. The PM must give the product boss an entirely accurate assessment of the schedule every single week. In Lateral Works terminology, there is zero room for happy schedules.
Ah, the infamous happy schedule. Anyone who has worked in corporate project management knows exactly what that is.
We all have the scars.
It is the beautifully formatted spreadsheet where every single milestone is magically colored green month after month until the day before the launch, when suddenly the entire document turns red and the project is delayed by a year.
Yes. A happy schedule is an act of organizational cowardice.
Wow. Cowardice.
It is, because it hides bad news until it is far too late to fix it. The CEO and COO dynamic only functions if the PM reveals the ugly truth, the minor slips, the hidden risks, early enough for the product boss to apply that before-the-fact urgency we discussed earlier.
So we have our CEO and our COO operating in lockstep. Now we need to look at the rest of the squad. Who actually makes up this heavyweight dedicated core team? And more importantly, what happens to those powerful functional managers we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive?
According to Lateral Work's best practices, the product delivery team is not a massive, unwieldy committee. It consists of 11 to 13 very specific seats.
11 to 13. That is a tight group.
Yes. These are critical cross-functional roles like module design, product engineer, test engineer, validation lead, quality lead, manufacturing engineering, procurement, and so on.
And as we established with Principle 4, these 11 to 13 people are 100% dedicated to this single product.
No multiplexing.
They're not matrixed across other projects.
Right. They are referred to in the framework as the embedded leads.
The embedded leads.
Yes. And this is where the traditional organizational chart experiences a fundamental seismic shift. These embedded leads take their primary day-to-day direction, their priorities, and their task assignments entirely from the product boss.
Meaning they bypass the swim lanes?
They do not take daily orders from their traditional functional managers in the swim lanes.
Okay, I have to raise the potential for a massive corporate turf war here.
Oh, it gets political fast.
If I am the VP of engineering or a senior functional manager and this new product boss model is suddenly implemented in my company, I have essentially just lost all my operational power.
That is how they perceive it, yes.
The engineers who used to report to me, who used to execute my departmental priorities, are now taking orders from this cross-functional unicorn.
Yeah.
How does an organization survive this kind of culture shock without an outright mutiny from the middle management layer?
It is, without a doubt, the most politically sensitive part of the entire FTTM transition. The lateralworks.com papers address this friction directly.
How do they solve it?
The functional managers do not disappear, and they are not demoted, but their role must be fundamentally retrained and redefined.
Retrain to do what?
They have to stop seeing themselves as project managers who control daily tasks, and they must start seeing themselves as talent agencies.
A talent agency.
Yeah.
That is a fascinating psychological pivot. What does a talent agency actually do in the context of a highly technical hardware company?
Well, think about a sports agent or a talent manager in Hollywood.
Okay.
They don't direct the movie, and they don't call the plays on the field. They provision elite talent. Under this model, a functional manager's success is no longer measured by micromanaging the daily schedule of a project. Instead, their success and their bonus is measured by how elite, how well-trained, and how technologically prepared the engineers they supply to the product bosses are.
So the functional manager focuses entirely on the people and the standards.
Yes, while the product boss focuses entirely on the product and the speed.
That is a very clean division of labor. The functional manager is responsible for building the fastest race car driver in the world through training, career development, and setting enterprise technical standards.
And the product boss is the one who tells that driver which track to race on and when to accelerate.
But the boundary must remain ironclad. Functional managers absolutely cannot direct daily work or impose their own departmental timelines onto the PDT's integrated schedule.
If they do, the whole thing falls apart.
This model sounds incredibly efficient and mathematically sound, but it also sounds impossibly demanding on the human beings involved.
It is an elite framework.
Finding one single person who commands respect across mechanical engineering, software, and manufacturing, who deeply understands P&L, who possesses the political savvy to fight off executive meddling, and who operates with relentless, proactive urgency. Finding this unicorn product boss sounds like a statistical anomaly.
They are very hard to find.
Where do these people actually come from? And if you do manage to implement this fragile system, how do you know if it is secretly starting to break down?
This is exactly what the final section of the Lateral Works research addresses: building the bench and monitoring the diagnostic signals of failure.
Let's start with the hiring problem, because it is the biggest bottleneck to scaling this model. Let's talk about the clock. How long does it actually take to hire a unicorn from the open market?
If a company tries to hire an external product boss to run a critical FTTM program, the timeline is grim.
How grim?
From the moment you initiate an executive search to identifying candidates with this rare cross-functional blend, conducting multiple rounds of interviews, negotiating their notice periods at their current jobs, and finally getting them onboarded, assimilated into your culture, and ramped up to full productivity.
That sounds like a lot of steps.
The data shows you are looking at a 9 to 18-month cycle.
9 to 18 months. That is a paradox. We just spent the last hour meticulously detailing how time to market is the ultimate constraint and how a 6-month delay destroys 33% of your profit.
Exactly.
A delay of over a year just to hire the leader is completely unacceptable. The market window will be closed before they even figure out where the cafeteria is.
It completely defeats the foundational purpose of FTTM planning. Therefore, the research concludes that organizations simply cannot rely on the open market for this role.
So what do?
They must have a product boss and training bench. You have to identify them and grow them internally years before you actually need them to lead a flagship product.
How do you actually forge an expert generalist internally? You can't just send a senior engineer to a 2-day leadership seminar and crown them a product boss.
No, seminars don't work for this. You build them through intentional shadow assignments.
Shadow assignments.
You identify high-potential individuals and you place them in a dedicated boss and training seat on an existing high-functioning core team. Crucially, they hold no independent accountability at first.
They just watch.
They observe the CEO and COO dynamic, but over time, they're given dated transitions to autonomy.
How does that work?
The current product boss gradually hands them specific bounded decisions, moving them up the freedom scale from level 4 to level 3 and eventually to level 1 until they are proven ready to take their own product.
I see a massive corporate paradox here, though. We established earlier that the product boss must be an expert generalist.
Yeah.
But corporate hierarchies, by their very design, usually only reward and promote hyper-specialists. You get promoted to senior engineer because you are the absolute best thermodynamics expert in the building, not because you are curious about global supply chain logistics.
And that is the problem.
Aren't we looking for a needle in a haystack within our own ranks?
It is the ultimate talent challenge of FTTM planning, and it requires proactive, almost aggressive intervention from executive leadership.
They have to force it.
Organizations have to actively hunt for engineers who show a unique early aptitude for business logic, cross-disciplinary curiosity, and natural leadership gravity.
You have to spot the talent early.
And then management has to pull those specific individuals out of the standard comfortable specialist track very early in their careers. If you wait until an engineer is a 20-year veteran deeply entrenched in a single functional swim lane, it is almost always too late to rewire their brain into a generalist CEO mindset.
So you have to catch them early, break them out of the silo, and mold them across multiple disciplines. That makes logical sense.
It is hard work, but it pays off.
Now let's look at the health of the system itself. Let's say we have successfully groomed our product boss, we have assembled our dedicated core team, and a project is running. How does upper management know if the FTTM model is actually functioning as designed, or if the culture is secretly reverting back to the old, comfortable, slow swim lanes?
The Lateral Works framework provides 3 glaring diagnostic warning signals that the system is quietly breaking down. You don't have to wait for the schedule to turn red to see these.
What is the first signal?
The first signal is purely behavioral. If the product boss is routinely waiting for functional approval before making a product-level decision, the system has failed.
They're asking for permission.
Yes. They have regressed to level 4 or 5 on the freedom scale. The empowerment is completely gone.
They have stopped being a boss and started being a highly paid messenger between executives.
Exactly. The second warning signal is organizational. If the embedded leads on the core team revert to taking their daily orders and priorities from their old functional bosses instead of the product boss, mutiny. When this happens, it fragments the team, destroys the single point of accountability, and proves that the functional managers have not accepted their new talent agency roles.
The functional VPs are actively clawing their power back, and the team is caught in the crossfire. And what is the third and final signal?
The third is a structural failure driven by the executive level itself. The product boss is assigned to multiple products at once.
The executives start matrixing the product boss.
Yes. The moment an executive looks at a successful product boss and says, "You did such a great job on product A, I want you to also run product B and product C simultaneously."
They just killed the model.
They have destroyed it. By multiplexing the leader, they are instantly reverting to a lightweight, slow, traditional project management model. The focus evaporates and the speed evaporates with it.
If we pull all this together, we have journeyed from the broken, siloed corporate swim lanes where accountability dies in midair into the radical, autonomous world of the product boss.
A completely different world.
We have seen how they command a dedicated team, how they mathematically justify speed against the devastating cost of delay, how they enforce quality through rigid phase gates, and how they operate as the undisputed CEO of their product. It's an incredibly compelling, almost brutal vision of how fast corporate execution could actually be if organizations just had the courage to get out of their own way.
It is a phenomenal blueprint for speed, but as we have seen, it requires relentless discipline at every single level of the company to maintain.
And that brings me to a final, slightly provocative thought for you to mull over as you look at your own organization. If a company successfully builds this model, if they manage to empower a product boss to act as a ruthless, highly incentivized CEO for their own product, single-mindedly focused on their own speed and their own market window, what happens when you have multiple heavyweight product bosses operating inside the exact same company? What happens when these empowered titans inevitably have to compete against each other for the exact same limited factory capacity or the exact same shrinking marketing budget? Does this intense decentralized focus create an unstoppable corporate culture of excellence, or does it eventually ignite a vicious corporate civil war? Something to explore on your own. Thanks for listening. Make sure to tune in next week where we will dive deeper into key practices of FTTM teams.
Fast